received the first phone call from the hospital that my mom was there, my wife Yvette was baffled by my response because I was way too calm and relaxed. But two things were true. One, in the 40 years I'd known her, I don't remember my mom ever having had a cold, a flu, even a headache. And she also had this willful positivity, so I knew that she would be done with the hospital thing quickly. But Yvette booked me a flight. And when I got there, the doctor said that it was time to gather the family. So my brother flew in from Costa Rica, and my sister flew in from Denver, and we happened to collide in the lobby in front of the elevator, along with the doctor, who told us that my mom might not make it. But they called in these hotshot, young, surfer dude surgeons, because apparently my mom had an internal bleed due to liver failure, and they had some new technology they wanted to play with, and they put a shunt through her liver, and they were really good at what they did, and she was fine. So we were told we could go home. So my brother and I talked a long time, though, about the fact that we were going to have to find a way to break it to my mom that she might need, at first, a wheelchair for a little bit because she might be weaker. And I decided my brother should do it because he's the boy and the only one that my mom might actually listen to. So he started in on this, and my mom cut him off. Said, if I stand up out of this bed and walk up and down that hallway, will you get this wheelchair out of your heads? So we both nodded. Sure, Mom. So after 2 weeks in the ICU and another week in recovery, my mom slid her legs off the side of this bed, stood up, and shuffled out into the hall. She'd been a principal for many years. She started marching down the hall as though it was her hall. She went right to the end, through the door, turned over her shoulder, and said, "Let's do the stairs." My mom was the daughter of Madeline Wilson and Milton Gewirtz, a scandalous marriage of the early 1900s. Madeline Wilson, Milton Gewirtz. My mom had chutzpah. So the doctors told us that this shunt might last about 6 months. Not surprisingly to those who know my mom, 6 months became 7 years. Now, my mom was a staunchly independent woman, so she was living in an apartment in DC, and these 7 years became tough. And she was having a harder and harder time, so we, of course, began the conversations about, maybe there's a move soon, and how about a move to Maine? During this time, I found a way to persuade her to let me take over the finances, and I got a friend to give her the gift of a car service so that we could get her off the road. And we continued to have the conversation. And as time went on, it became clearer and clearer. She started taking some falls, getting more disoriented, and she finally made the decision. So at this point, I took Yvette, my wife, to every single assisted living community in the state of Maine, twice. Okay, some of them 3, 4, one of them 5 times. And we finally settled on a place in Falmouth, and we navigated the big move. And I'm not one for regrets, but I still have angst because I thought about spending the first night in the place with my mom, and I didn't, and she took a fall. So we were off to Maine Med. And I worried when arriving at this new hospital that no one there would know her. They wouldn't know who she was, who she had been. So I found myself reporting out on her resume more than her medical history. This is my mom. We've just moved to Maine. We're from New York originally. We're very proud of that. She was an incredible educator there. She's renowned, revered. She was this great principal. She took this school that was nothing on the brink of collapse. She turned it into one of the most prestigious independent schools in the country. Oh, yes, and she's blind in one eye, and she has diabetes, and she's got liver failure. And she's usually not disoriented like this. But I didn't really need to worry. The first intern who came in, my mom said, "Gee, you're cute. I have a new apartment. I have a beautiful view of Casco Bay. You should come and visit. have lunch. And I'm leaving here now. And what school did you go to? Checking credentials. The longer we stayed, the more stubborn Mom became, a little ornery, and more insistent upon leaving. And at one point, she started asking for her shoes. And every time I walked in, there you are. How was your day at school? Bring me my shoes. One night, Yvette and I arrived, and she was actually sort of talking about school reform. And her hand was out there gesturing, and she was giving a talk, it appeared. And I found out later that there is this thing called hospital-induced dementia. And she was, in fact, giving a paper and a talk at the National Association of Independent Schools. And she turned to me and said, "Oh, you're here. Great. I'm having a party upstairs. Everybody's coming." My mother was the quintessential entertainer. She was the one who gathered everybody. So everyone was coming upstairs. And I said, "That's great, Mom. Well, maybe let's have dinner first." I wanted her to have some dinner. And she said, No. I've cooked and we're eating upstairs. So bring me my shoes. It was very hard for me not to do what my mother told me to do. I always did what she told me. So the very next day, we came back to the hospital and found out that she'd been moved to a new floor. And they called it the step-up floor. And I thought, oh, well, that sounds pretty good. And we're stepping up. And I got there and walked down the hall and turned the corner in a room, and the threshold of that room was the one time that was really hard for me. It was the first time that I had ever seen my mom not okay. And I slid to the end of the hall and found a chair, and I sank into it and put my head in my hands and sobbed. And the next thing I knew, Yvette and I were in this small office with the nice ladies. I will forever be very appreciative of these women. They were fabulous. And they were the nice ladies. Like, I didn't understand what was going on. They just, "How are you?" And so we're here to talk about things, I'm like, "No, I don't know. We're gonna make plans. What would you like to do?" I was like, oh, I've got plans. Game on, people. I'm getting my mother out of this hospital. Like, well, are you sure? We have options. There are things we can do. Are you kidding me? We're getting out of here. And at that point, a rabbi appeared, and she was a feisty, spirited woman rabbi, so I thought, okay, this is good. Mom would approve. It's all right. So she went in and spent some time with Mom, and she came out, and she said, "So I've heard your plans, and, it's okay to be still." And I said, "You're so right. And you don't know my mother." And then the same nice lady explained to me that we were really talking about hours now. And that there was a chance that if we left the hospital, we wouldn't make it home because of needing the transport oxygen was a decreased level. And I looked the woman in the eye, and I said, "I don't care if we make it to the front door. I need to bring my mom her shoes." So the care coordinators and social workers went into a flurry of activity, and the waiting began for us. A departure time was set, and two of my mom's dear friends arrived. And at one point, someone came and indicated that there had been a delay. Something about hospice and a mattress, and I said, "Oh, well, I am my mother's daughter." I marched down that hallway, found that care coordinator who was on the phone with hospice, and I said, "Hand me the phone." Delay solved. So I had brought my mom's favorite sweater, and I slipped it on, and her friend Dick slipped on her brown leather moccasins with the white soles. And I never could get my mom to wear anything with arch support. And we left, and Yvette got in the car and drove behind, and I rode in the ambulance with my mom. And I narrated the journey. I was like, "Hey, Mom, we're on the highway. And we're getting off the exit now. We're on the ramp. Hey, Mom, this is that stretch of the road that we love. It has the big trees, remember? We're in the elevator. We made it to the elevator. We're in the hallway. We're getting there." And the gurney crossed the threshold of the apartment, and hospice was there, and they helped to slip Mom into her bed, the one with the view of Casco Bay. That's why I chose it. And the photograph on the wall of Madeline Wilson and Milton Gevirtz, her parents and her 3 children. I'm like, "Mom, we did it. We made it." And she died 15 minutes later. Thank you.